Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about Superman 2025, the James Gunn movie. So, first I'm going to give a quick synopsis of what this movie is about. Yeah, I know what you're probably saying. Like, I'm always talking about how I don't go to movie theaters no more because of my tinnitus and this and that. Well, a friend of mine's wanted to go and didn't want to go alone. And they offered to pay my ticket because I wasn't going to pay no money to see this movie. And so I figured, hey, free is free, so why not? And with my earplugs in hand, I went. And so the movie is basically inspired by that of the all-star Superman movie, where it's like, but it's inspired by it, but it's not based off it because there's not much really going on that is similar to that comic and animated movie to this movie. So basically, you see Superman all throughout the movie. Well, first he's hurt, and that's the part of the trailer where he's falling down in the snow and like he's bloodied up and he's whistling to like the dog, and the dog comes to like was supposed to save him, but it's just jumping all on him. And so anyway, it takes him back to the fortress. He gets healed up, and throughout the entire movie, you constantly see Superman saving Metropolis from a kaiju, from this first he's in like another country, and he's like fighting this person in this kind of like robotic type suit. And so like him and Lois have like an argument and everything because she basically asks, why did you threaten like the ruler of that country, and like did you have permission to go over there? Did you ask anybody? Stuff like that. And so basically, we see Lex all throughout the movie trying to ruin the reputation of Superman. He's in the fortress. He discovers the like message from like his Kryptonian parents. He deciphers it, and it shows that they wanted Superman to conquer Earth and everything. He exposes Superman's like lineage and everything. Superman had no idea. And so like the people of like the world turn on Superman. Then next thing you know, like I'm trying to see what happened. I just watched this. After that, he like turns himself in for some reason because Lex stole crypto and all this other mess, and then he rescues Crypto. He sees Metamorphoso. He rescues the baby. Mr. Terrific kind of turns on like the Justice Gang, and like then we find out Lex is behind all this, and then he has a bunch of clones of Superman, and that's all I really like remember. And so and stuff like that. It's kind of hard to figure out what the heck is the actual central plot of this movie other than Lex wanting to ruin the reputation of Superman. Anyway, this is basically going to be my thoughts overall on the movie and stuff like that. First, before I say anything, let me just make this perfectly clear. I am not a Snyder bro in any way, shape, or form. I like Man of Steel. I own Man of Steel. I like the Justice League Snyder cut. I own it on DVD. And that's about it when it comes to Zack Snyder. I also own the first Wonder Woman and the first Aquaman movie of the DCEU. And those are the only movies, or also the Suicide Squad movie. It's not as bad as people say it is. Anyway, those are the only movies I own in the DCEU. And I owe The Rock like a huge apology for Black Adam. Although I still think it's a copy and paste movie, at least I was able to follow the story a heck of a lot better. But anyways, and it's like I have no real gripes about Zack Snyder, but I'm not like a huge fan. I think he's a great visual director and everything. He just has a hard time telling like story. I've said it before and I said it in the past. thing about Zack Snyder and his movies is like when he starts to cook and he starts to get overly excited, like he starts to lose control of his movies and they start to get drawn out, especially like in the action and the slow motion and stuff like that. He needs a person from like studios to kind of like pull him back into like reality, because like his enthusiasm starts to get a little bit delusional and stuff like that when it comes to like, his filmmaking and stuff. He just does way too much and doesn't pull it back. Like the Justice League Snyder Cut, that movie had no business being 4 hours long. He could have chopped it up and had two completely different movies, to where, the Justice League, and then the second one be like, Darkseid versus the Justice League and everything. But the thing is, it's like, and I've also said this before, Zack Snyder does not understand superheroes. He understands vigilantes. And that's because the man himself has literally said that he wasn't a fan of Superman growing up. Like, he likes comics that are all about sex, drugs, and like action and stuff like that. And so he deconstructed the entire DC universe. And because of that, it left a sour taste in people's mouths. Like, people didn't recognize his heroes or supporting characters, because they really didn't act the way like they normally do. I mean, you have Alfred telling Batman, no, you don't have to save Martha Kent. Like, what? It's like, the dude's a hero. She's about to die. Yes, you do need to save her. Jonathan Kent and Martha Kent, not really wanting Superman to save anybody. Jonathan Kent's all like, maybe you should let the people on the bus, like, die and everything. And then Jonathan Kent didn't want to be saved. Martha Kent is all like, oh, you don't owe the people this world nothing, but a bunch of aliens from your planet are coming down and they're gonna rule the entire thing. So you kind of do owe them something, because they have taken care of you for his entire life. And Wonder Woman like quitting like the hero business, all because of like one battle, and like her love interest, I should say, like, died. So she just completely gave up for many, many, many years. And, then there's Batman, who's a hypocrite, going around murdering like villains and, and branding them and wanting to kill Superman and everything. And it's just kind of like, who are these people? And then you have like, Lex Luthor having like acting so weird and everything. And then there was Superman himself, a man trying to find his place in the world, moping around, traveling the world for many years, occasionally like saving people, never really smiling, being grumpy at times and stuff like that. And it's just like, these heroes will occasionally save people. And it was just so odd, I mean, look at Martian Manhunter. Apparently he's been there the whole time, and 2 alien invasions, he didn't do absolutely nothing. And so a lot of fans just didn't like that take, you know what I'm saying? And if Zach would have had his way, he said he would have had the gods of like Atlantis and Themyscira be from Krypton and everything. And it's just kind of like, no, that's not who they are. Like, Atlanteans and Themyscirians, they are their own separate things. They are not Kryptonian. But he just didn't like what was in the comics from back in the day. And so, some people like that and some people didn't. But for the majority of people, they just didn't recognize these characters they love so much, and so like, they just wasn't happy and stuff. And it's just kind of like, you can't change things that much. You know what I'm saying? So when he was out and other people was in, they tried to like fix, the damage that was done, but there was no fixing it after a while. And I've noticed that like in other like Superman interpretations that be like on the small screen, they have tried to correct, this like darker version of Superman that's grumpier and depressed and stuff like that, to and doesn't know his way in life. 'Cause, you know, you have Superman and Lois that was on the CW, My Adventures with Superman that's on Cartoon Network. And you know, and even like, you know, some of the animated movies tried, like, you know, Superman of Tomorrow, they tried to have that more upbeat Superman, that more classic Superman and stuff like that, because, you know, people just wasn't feeling like the dark brooding one in the next snap of all things. But even like I said before, I love the Man of Steel movie. I just wish the color palette was a lot brighter. And some of the weirder stuff, like Jonathan Kent and all them, like, you know, don't save people. I wish stuff like that was not in the movie. At first, I justified the next snap because saying, you know, this dude was never Superboy. He was just Superman. And it's like, you know, but after a while, it's just kind of like he could have stopped him in another way. And to find out that David S. Goyer and Zack Snyder went to DC and be like, hey, can we have Superman kill somebody? And they all like, no. But then they kept trying to persuade DC to where DC finally said, all right, fine, whatever, and everything. It just still did not work. And, you know, a lot of people just didn't feel it. And then killing Superman off, you know, in the second movie, or what was it? Yeah, in his second outing, that just didn't make no sense. And so other than that, I don't really have no gripes with like Zack Snyder, although I will say that he does have a responsibility to calm his fans down. When his fans start just attacking people online and threatening their lives and everything, he never says anything, and that's messed up. Now, if you know me, you also know, like, I'm not a James Gunn fan. When James Gunn came out with those pedo jokes, or better, I should say, when he was exposed for doing those pedo jokes, I've just never been a fan ever since. I think there is something mentally wrong in James Gunn's, like, head to where he thinks something like that would be funny. He's a grown man, for crying out loud. What kind of grown man gets pleasure in making jokes about that? That's some weird stuff. Also, I feel like James Gunn is a bit of a man child. Like, he needs to grow up. His movies really need to mature and everything. And that's one problem I had with this movie, is that it was way too silly and way too comedic. And I don't care what anybody says, I cannot stand this version of Crypto. It was too much, and it was all throughout the movie. And if I had a dog like that, I would disown it. That dog is completely reckless and everything. But James Gunn found the humor in that, and it was all throughout the movie. And so, like, when it comes to James Gunn, you know, there's some movies of his I like, there's some I don't. I've never liked the Guardian movies, like, never. I like when he wrote the Scooby-Doo movies, even though those were not perfect. I still like those, but, you know. And I also liked his Suicide Squad movie. But James Gunn has a weird, I don't know, it's like this weird fixation with kids. And no, I've said this before, I do not think that he's ever messed around with a kid. Like, I don't. I just don't get that feeling. But I do get the feeling he has a weird, like, obsession with, like, you know, youth and everything. Like, I really truly believe this man wishes he could, like, de-age himself to back to when he was a kid and not be an adult. Because there's always some weird fixation with, like, children in, like, his movies. Like, take the Guardian movies. He killed off adult Groot and made him into like a baby and then later a kid. And the big focal point was Baby Groot. People just love Baby Groot. He even did the cap motion for like Baby Groot like dancing and everything. Then you have the Brightburn, which is kind of like a dark take on Superman, but it's like a kid or like a teenager and stuff. Then you have the Suicide Squad movie, where Starro is very plushy and cute and adorable in a kitty kind of way. And that's not who Starro is, you know? And Star was just made to look like this big plush like toy and everything. Then you have the kaiju in the Superman movie, and it's very plushy and kitty looking and everything, like something like a kid would play with like a toy. Then there's Metamorpho like son or baby in this movie, and it's just kind of like, what is this dude like fixation with like kids and youth and I just don't get it. It's not a good look, especially when you make those type of jokes in like the past and everything, you know? And so it's just something about James Gunn that always kind of like made me wonder about him in the sense of like he's a giant man child and stuff like that. It's like it's just something, and it's just his clash brass kind of way, and also how like he writes certain characters and stuff. But anyways, it's like, so I'm not a Snyder bro, I'm not a James Gunn fan. So when I do criticize this movie, and I'm gonna criticize it, just know it's not like some of these people like online, like these people right here. It is hard being a DC fan in the modern day. It is hard being a Superman fan in the modern day. Mainly because it's the Snyder Bros versus the James Gunn fans versus DC fans. And everybody is just fighting online. And it's getting so tiring. This has been going on. It feels like a decade now. And it's just like, when are people gonna move on to where everybody can just enjoy everything like they used to? Why can't DC fans of all just reunite and just be fans again? You know what I'm saying? Like, I would just love that so much. But you got like this one person talking about like, how Zack Snyder portrays women and how James Gunn portrays women. This is not accurate whatsoever. First of all, Gal Gadot, who was Wonder Woman, this picture right here that this person used is just her bad acting. That is all. This still picture of like hot girl is just a still picture. Hot girl in this movie didn't do crap. Like, if you wanted to talk about how James Gunn portrays women, all she did was screech all throughout the movie and didn't really fight nobody. She hit somebody with her mace twice, and that was a bit it. Okay, this is the thing. The actress said that the scream was her sonic scream. I don't recall Hot Girl ever having a sonic scream. Plus, when she did scream, nobody's ears were like affected. So why was she constantly screeching like that? I don't get it. And then there's like Miss Tessmacher and everything. The way she was portrayed in the movie. So this is not an accurate statement of how like, saying James Gunn like, portrays women so much better. And it's like, it's not. And this person's account, either they just don't go online or they're just like a weird bot or something like that, because this person posted this thing about James Gunn and Zack Snyder recently, but they haven't been online since February and everything. And they tend to post every couple of 6 months. And it's just kind of like, so why should I trust somebody who's gaslighting? You know what I'm saying? And there are other comments back and forth from both like James Gunn fans and Snyder Bros, constantly making fun of stuff, constantly saying this, constantly saying that. And it's just like, enough is enough. It's so tiring. It's to the point where you don't want to be a DC fan or a Superman fan no more, because they're just constantly bickering with one another. And these statements just aren't like true enough or like good enough and everything. Like this one from like a Snyder bro that says James Gunn Superman movie is struggling because of the 70% like box office drop. I don't know how much it's dropped. The movie literally just came out. And movies always are gonna drop in like their second week. But like, the movie has like good critical scores, which I still don't understand that. It's making a lot of money, and stuff like that. And the movie literally just came out. So, like, whatever. Because if you're going to compare movies, the only DCEU movies who ever did extremely well was Aquaman, who made 1 billion, and then the first Wonder Woman movie. The ones that Zack Snyder made are very what you call them? It's like they didn't make that much movie, and their critical scores aren't really that great and everything. So I just don't like it when these fans are gaslighting, they're constantly insulting one another, they're constantly fighting online, and like they're just making stuff up. And it's just so annoying and everything. But I've noticed something with this movie and a lot of stuff people have been saying online. It's like you are not allowed to criticize this movie whatsoever and everything. Because of the simple fact is like because because of Zack Snyder's dark and gritty take on the DC universe that have irked a lot of fans and the Snyder Bros pissing people off online. Now you have people who feel like they are the opposition and everything. They feel like they have to constantly defend the new DCU like no matter what and everything. And it's getting to the point where you don't even really know people's opinion of like, the movie and stuff like that. Because I've noticed a lot of people are being very hypocritical of this movie to where there are things that happen in this movie that they love and make excuses for. Yeah, if it would have happened in any other movie and any other director, they would have complained about it. Because this movie does a lot of telling and not a lot of showing. This movie's pacing is all over the place and the humor is all over the place. And I find it odd that so many people are just like loving this movie left and right and don't find flaws in like, some of these things. Because before I went to go watch this movie, I watched about 2, maybe 3 reviews, or 4, and stuff like that. And this one person hyped this movie up so much that I knew I wasn't gonna like it. And it's like the other people, some liked it and some just felt like it wasn't for them and they was disappointed. And I'm disappointed in everything. I don't hate this movie. I'm just really disappointed because I've been worried about this movie for the longest time because of how James Gunn likes to tell movies and stuff. He is a man child who really needs to grow up. And I was always worried about that. And my worries were justified after watching this movie and stuff. And it's like, some of the people that are like legit, like nice review critics on YouTube and everything, who they will say, if they would just say one thing negative about this movie, they got attacked by their fans online. You're not allowed to criticize this movie. It's just a dog. That's how dogs act. Blah, 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 blah. Like pacing, who cares about pacing and everything? And it's like, what? You want to see everything? Sometimes you just need to be told some stuff and not see everything. And it's just kind of like, who the heck are these people? These are the same people who literally criticize other movies for doing the exact same thing, but yet they're giving a pass on this movie. And I feel like it's split in half. I feel like some of the people who's giving this a pass just generally love this movie or really like it. The other people who are giving passes to this movie are those that want this movie to succeed, want the DCU to succeed, and just want to stick it to like the Snyder Bros and everything because they just don't get along with them. And it's just so weird how people are turning a blind eye to like this movie. Now, let me just say some of the things I do actually like about this movie. I do like some of the people who are cast in this movie. I think they did a very good job. There are some I wish could have done a bit better and everything. Because it's just kind of like, I don't know, it's just like minor nitpicks and everything. Like I wish David Cornsweet had a lighter sounding voice. That's just a nitpick. It's just weird hearing Superman with a deep manly voice. You know what I'm saying? It's just weird. I wish Lex could have been a little bit more. He was evil in this movie, but it's just something about Nicholas Holt's performance that I felt like could have been more charismatic. I still think the best Lex is the one from the animated movie, and the best live action is the one from Smallville. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you really want to make a modern day Superman, Smallville was the way to go. It's just he didn't fight, fly, or wear a suit. That's the only disappointing thing about it. But that was probably the best reimagining modern day take on like a Superman story, in my opinion. And so like, another thing I like Guy Gardner, right? And so for the most part, I like the cast. The characters I felt like needed a bit more. This movie, it's weird. This movie was stuffed with a lot of characters, but it never felt that way because there are like basically three different acts in the movie. You have the Daily Planet stuff and the people, and they all doing their thing. Then you have Lex and his people doing their own thing in a separate part. And then you kind of have like the Justice Gang and Superman, these other like heroes and stuff, doing their own thing. And they rarely interact with each other. I don't think nobody really from like the Daily Planet and like Lex's people, I really don't think they interacted that much. The only two that interacted was like Jimmy and Miss Tessmacher and everything. And Lois didn't even interact with Lex, I don't believe, in this movie. And I don't even think Lex really even interacted with the Justice Gang and stuff like that. And so, like, it's kind of odd because it's stuffed, but it don't feel that way because of that. It just feels like three separate, like, things and stuff, you know? But I do feel like these characters needed a lot more explanation and a lot more character growth if you're gonna throw them in there. Like, but the thing is like they all just seem like supporting characters, and that's really it. So that's one problem I have. It does feel like a comic book movie, you know what I'm saying? With tons of like characters just start popping in out of like nowhere and stuff. Another thing I really, really love was the argument between Lois and Clark. That felt like the most realist thing in the entire movie, to where she supports him, but she has problems with the way he does things. Like when he goes to another country and start asserting his might around, you know what I'm saying? When he threatens the leader of this one country, when he put him up against like a cactus and everything, like, she's all like, why would you do that and everything? Like, it's basically like intimidation and stuff. But we don't never get to see it. We just get told it and stuff. But I really did like that argument they had. And it's kind of like it does kind of tie into the movie to where we find out about his parents and why Superman was really here. And it's kind of like, he chose not to really go down that path, even though he ain't know nothing about that message. And he decided to be like an actual hero and save like the world. But he still did intimidate somebody and basically made them like, stop doing whatever it is they was doing. Certain like action scenes I thought was neat. Like, the thing Superman does in this movie is very Superman like. I like seeing a Superman that smiles and everything. I like seeing a Superman that has like, this charismatic side, who's friendly to people, who's hugging little kids and stuff like that. But I do feel like before, this was kind of overly forced because of the dark grim nature of the DCEU and Man of Steel. And so it happened way too much in this movie, to where it felt a bit forced at times, but it was needed and everything. I do like how he gave somebody a speech, I think after saving them, that very Supermanish type like speech and everything that Superman is very much known for like doing and everything. So it was nice to see that more upbeat, like, personality of his and stuff. He felt more like Superboy than Superman. Like, I've never heard Superman call somebody dude and, get so irritated like with a dog and everything. Some of the action scene, like I said before, was neat because it does remind you of like animation or like a comic and everything like that. I just felt like the action itself just was not good enough compared to like other superhero action movies from the MCU and the DCEU. It's just kind of like it felt rushed. Now for the things I did not like and everything. I did not like the humor. Like I told you before, the MCU has broke me when it comes to humor, to where I just don't like seeing humor in something serious no more. I feel like it's unneeded. I feel like it takes you out the story. I feel Crypto was annoying AF. I could not stand that dog whatsoever. And it was just too much Crypto and everything. And it was too much like humor and stuff like that. And I'm so tired of seeing people justify the way this dog act. Well, that's just how a dog acts. I've never seen a dog act like that. I've never seen a dog constantly jumping on people. I've seen them get overly too happy and stuff like that, I've seen them like wreck stuff, but never to this degree. To where Superman is hurt and here comes Crypto. You think he's going to save him, but he's bouncing on top of him, crushing his ribs, breaking them even more. And it's just kind of like, that was so unnecessary to have that dog act the way it does. And to have the second like act to be all about Clark being so pissed off that his dog got stolen, that way he would literally turn himself in just to go find the dog and rescue the dog and everything like that. It literally became about the stinking dog and everything, kind of like a John Wick kind of thing. When you realize that the reason why what happened in the John Wick movie was because of a dog, that is funny. Here, it just seems like James Gunn is being James Gunn and everything. All because he fell in love with this dog he found, and I just don't like this dog. I just can't stand this dog. But of course, you're not allowed to have an opinion about this movie and stuff. But it was just too much and everything. And then to find out he's Supergirl's dog is weird because she's supposed to have a cat named Streaky and everything. I'm sorry, but Jimmy Olsen is not no ladies' man. I'm sorry, especially this man. I'm not trying to knock the way he looks, but this man got a woman like Tess, whatever her name is, Tess Mocker or whatever. Like, he got her and she's obsessed with him. Like, she is obsessed with him. And it's just like you go from Jimmy to like Lex, but won't like Jimmy back. And it's just kind of like, what? I don't get that. Like, he is literally a ladies' man. He doesn't want nothing to do with her. And it's like women are constantly like constantly like looking at him and all this other stuff. And it's just kind of like, that's just, I feel like this is James Gunn, inner nerd geek, wanting that nerd geek to like land a hot girl, you know what I'm saying? Like every geek and nerd's desire, you know what I'm saying? But this didn't make no kind of sense. But I've never been a Jimmy Olsen fan ever in my life, except for that of Smallville. That is the only time I've ever liked him and stuff. And to think that there's a rumor that James Gunn wants to give Jimmy his own television show. Why? Why? The side villains are still underdeveloped. You have the engineer who's all nanotech, and we don't know why she's nanotech until until she tells Lex, because of like, your passion and your vision and your mission and everything. I literally sacrificed my body to help you in that vision. So it's kind of like, oh, okay. You believe in Lex so much that you're willing to mutilate your entire body just to help Lex out. Are you in love with him, or do you just see him as a great visionary? Like, what the world's going on? It would have been a whole lot more interesting if, like, say she was in an accident and had to like repair her body, and he's like, oh, I'll help your body out, but you have to do this for me. Kind of like Metallo from Superman the animated series, when Lex manipulated him and everything. Or, just show that she's so in love with him, she'll do anything for him. These are things that need to be shown and not told in everything. Now, the actor who played Mr. Terrific, I'm so glad this dude got like, he's like the combat kid from like what happened to him in the X-Men movies and stuff. I do like this. I do like Mr. Terrific. He's cool, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like James Gunn wrote him like a stereotypical 1970 black action hero. You know what I'm saying? Like he was loud, jived a couple of times, and but other than that, he was cool. This is not the version of Mr. Terrific I'm known to see. I'm used to seeing Mr. Terrific mostly in animation where he's like calm, he's logical, he sounds kind of like a Vulcan and everything because of how smart he is. This one was just like another loud black man and everything. And I don't like how James Gunn fed into that stereotype to where I would never want to see James Gunn do another black character in case he does something like that again. And speaking of black characters, I am very shocked and surprised that more characters in this movie were not race bent. I would have thought for sure he would have race bent Jimmy or like, Lex or maybe even Lois, but probably not Lois because he tried to keep it straight to like that of the comics. But, in a lot of interpretations lately, Jimmy has been portrayed as black. Same with Perry White. And in fact, he made Perry White black in this, similar to how Zack Snyder did in some animation things. And of course, the only character he race bent, he gave absolutely nothing to do. Which now makes me wonder if this is why he didn't race bend Lex or like Jimmy, because even Lex has been portrayed as a black man in animation. And since Perry didn't do nothing, it does make me now wonder if that's why Perry got race bent, just so he couldn't do nothing, and try to make it up with Mr. Terrific by showing that Mr. Terrific is a black man who did a lot, and that's pretty cool. And it does kind of make you wonder, because James Gunn has race bent like characters in the past and have given them plenty to do, but now with the government wanting to roll back on DEI, and how David Zaslav is and stuff like that, it makes you wonder if he wasn't allowed to race bend certain characters and stuff that was like main or supporting main characters. I thought for sure like Maxwell Lord was going to be like a central playing character, since he created his own justice like superhero group and everything called the Justice Gang. And I thought for sure the Justice Gang might be kind of evil, but they wasn't. And speaking of the Justice Gang, like I said before, I like Guy Gardner, but James Gunn has got to stop with all this crazy humor. Like that one picture he had of Superman casually putting on his costume as there's like this giant thing in the background. We now finally got confirmation as to what the heck was going on, and it was played for completely comedic laughs and everything. Lois is all like, well, aren't you going to help them out and everything? It's like, nah, they got it and everything. And then when you see them fighting this giant thing, they're fighting it in a very cartoony kind of way. Like when you see Guy Gardner hit it with like a baseball bat, he's hitting it in a very cartoony kind of way. And I'm just kind of like, James Gunn needs to grow up. Like he needs to just grow up and everything. But the fact that Superman didn't even attempt to try to like stop that thing, I just don't know what to say about this man, But yet everybody is loving this and everything. But wait a minute, I thought everybody's supposed to be like tired of like this whole not comedic, but comedic nature in like these superhero movies because of like the MCU and everything. Like, didn't so many people say they're tired of humor and like these superhero movies that kind of take you out of place? That took me completely out of place and everything. Also, what the heck happened to Hot Girl's wings and everything? Because I know this is a different version than the Shira Hall one, but does this one have like artificial wings or like organic? Where the heck did they go? You never once saw them go inside like, anything. You didn't see them go inside like a box. You didn't see them go inside like her flesh and skin. Even in the television version, you see the wings contract and go into something. And he couldn't even bother to show that. Like, this man doesn't show anything. Like, I don't get why everybody is loving this movie. Like, I don't. Because it's like other things people would have complained about, nobody is complaining about in this movie. Now, there are some people who are upset about the whole Supergirl thing, being drunk and being a party girl, but this is supposed to lead up to her movie, and that movie is supposed to be based on a comic where she's getting drunk and is like, in a bad place, and she leaves Earth to go to a planet that doesn't have a yellow sun, and she's like depowered and everything, and like, so that set all that up. So I'm okay with all that because she's supposed to be drunk in her own movie. But now it makes you wonder how much of that comic is going to be shown in that movie. And plus, I don't want to see a depowered Supergirl. Now back to the whole parents messaging and him supposed to conquer the world and stuff like that, but he chose not to. I feel like that was so rushed because it's kind of like he never knew what the message was supposed to be about. And so people have literally said that like he chose not to go down that path. But here's the thing is, he chose not to go down that path because when you see the way his parents are, his adoptive parents are portrayed in this movie, like the mom is so sweet and so nice, and the dad is so simple and everything. So of course he's not gonna grow up to like be that way. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because he had those loving parents. It's not that necessarily he chose not to be evil. That whole not be evil thing was instilled on him because you have to get that impression because once again, he doesn't show how Clark was raised growing up and everything. Then there is Lois. I like Lois in the first half of the movie. But then the second half, her personality completely changes. It's like first she was kind of like, against Superman doing what he's doing. And then in the second half, she's just kind of like, whatever, I gotta like defend Superman and protect Superman and blah, 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 blah. And then it's kind of like after that, she just becomes like a girlfriend and she starts to do the like reporting thing. But the way she's able to figure out where Lex is by like tests and the pictures and everything was just too spot on the nose and everything. I kind of wanted more of that investigative like type thing, you know what I'm saying? Because I felt like, I don't know, it's weird. It's like she went from being like this headstrong person who would literally, you know, stand up and kind of talk down to Superman, but not in a nasty kind of way, to then just being like a girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? For the rest of the movie and stuff like that. And then when she started just being a girlfriend, this is when her character started smiling more, and she just looked so innocent and everything. And she didn't look like that stern Lois no more. Now she had a great look to her, and she looks like she's been ripped straight from the comic and everything. And I am glad she had more to at least, I don't know, because like I like Amy Adams, but Amy Adams was never really written like a Lois Lane. It's like she was giving something to do in Man of Steel, but then afterwards, it's just like Zack didn't know what to do with her, but it just kept inserting her into like the movie to where like she didn't do nothing and stuff like that for the other movies. And here I felt like that kind of happened as well, where the first half she was doing something, then the second half she's still doing stuff, but it's kind of like they're off in their, like, it's like the Daily Planet people are off on their own little adventure. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it would have been nice to see her get rescued at least once. You know, so that's like a lowish like trope. You know what I'm saying? Like, she doesn't have to be rescued all the time, but just like once would have been just nice to see, you know? Now, as for the Daily Planet people, like I said before, I do like the cast. I think they acted good, but these characters are one-dimensional and one note. Cat Grant, I can't tell you nothing about her. Lombard, he's just Lombard, you know, he's just a goof and everything. And like an ogre type character. Perry White, he's just the grumpy boss and everything, as he always is. Like, and I can't even tell you who the black dude is. I don't even know his name on the left side, but that is not Perry White. And it's just kind of like they threw these characters in. It's like, okay, fine, whatever. But like when they went on that little adventure thing in Mr. Terrific's little ship thing, that would have been nice to have some character development or have them at least do something. You know what I'm saying? Like, if they really wasn't gonna do anything, I really don't need to see them. I didn't need to see Lombard. I didn't need to see Cat Grant. Only give me Jimmy and like Lois, and probably throw in Perry to bark some orders, and that's about it. But and this is where it's like these are one-dimensional characters. Like, they really truly are and everything. Now, Nicholas Hoult as Lex. I hope this dude never goes bald in real life because he does not have a nice bald head. However, I felt like they tried too hard to make him look cool and bad. This is something that's been going on with Lex for a while because of the whole Jesse Eisenberg version of Lex. Like in the one in Superman and Lois, I still think it's ridiculous how this man walked hundreds of miles from one city to another, like literally non-stop, just to like confront Superman and everything. And so, or Lois, or whoever it is he was confronting, I think it was Lois. And so, like, this version of Lex should have had his super suit. This is something fans have been wanting to see for the longest time, and I'm surprised James Gunn did not do that. Instead of having all these like random side villains that really wasn't nothing, like, why not just have Lex and Superman go at it? This is something fans have been wanting to see in live action for the longest time. And they did not deliver that. And it's just kind of like, I would have accepted that a heck of a lot more than all the crap Lex is doing, especially with those clones and this and that. I still don't really get Lex's plan. Like, his whole plan was to like expose Superman as being like a tyrant and show that he is not this big savior and everything. That would have made sense until, like, you know, later on in the movie, he goes up straight trying to kill Superman because he hates Superman and everything. But it's kind of like, why exactly does this version of Lex hate Superman so much? Other than the fact that he's just Lex Luthor, you know? And it's just kind of like, and then he had the pocket dimension with all those prisoners. And it's kind of like, who was those weird alien looking people? How did he get these like really smart monkeys and everything? And it's just like, there's so much stuff that needs to be explained with that pocket dimension. It's not even funny and everything. And like, they wanted to show just how evil he was by having his ex-girlfriends locked up. That's just a James Gunn type of thing. Like, I really don't believe Lex would ever really do something so stupid like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, he would just straight up like not care about them, leave them, or probably kill them or something like that. But put them in like, you know, a pocket dimension prison is just weird. And the whole Metamorpho thing, how did he get his son? How did, you know, because like that's the only reason why Metamorpho is in the prison and doing what Lex wants. How did he kidnap that dude's son and everything? And it's just kind of like, You know, you have Metamorpho, then you have like the baby and everything, and then all of a sudden when Metamorpho is like, at home, he's with his like, girlfriend or wife, and it's just kind of like, um, James Gunn is suspecting you to know who she is and everything, and most people don't know who she is. I only know who she is because of the animated series and everything, and that's only it. And it's just kind of like, like I'm just not feeling this movie. It just feels all over the place. Like, and then like there's the whole clone thing. I wish to God they would have shown Lex making the clones or seeing the laboratory with like, messed up looking clones or something. But I'm just not feeling none of these villains. I wanted somebody like Brainiac or something like that. These are all things we've seen before in the past. How many times has Lex been a villain in a live action Superman movie? How many times have we seen an evil version of Superman? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just so tired of seeing this stuff. Like, people want to see Brainiac and stuff. But I do still feel they try to make Lex look too tough. Like, and just to be like evil. Yeah, he's evil. You have to get that somehow. But the things he was doing, like shooting that random person, just to show, hey, look how bad I am. I shot this random person. Or when he threw something at his girlfriend and it actually hit, I think, like her leg or foot or something like that. It's kind of like, really? That's how you have to show this dude being tough and bad, throwing something at like a woman and showing that he doesn't really care about her and just passing her on by, but she's still with him and obsessed because she's the dumb blonde and everything like that. Like, really? And it's kind of like you've seen other versions of Lex be tough and bad without having to do things like that. Because, yeah, he looks down on everybody, but he hates Superman the most, and he doesn't really like superpowered people. And he will torture powered people and experiment on them. But it's kind of like, how the heck does an animated series have one of the scariest versions of Lex, and the dude's not even allowed to kill in the show? But yet in live action, they try way too hard to make him cool. Like when he was walking through the fortress and all that stuff was like flying around him and sparking and everything. And it's like nothing's phasing him. And it's kind of like, come on, something could have hit his behind. It's just James Gunn forcefully trying to make this dude look cooler than what he really is. And the fact that Nicholas Hoult got paid more than the lead star, that would have pissed me off. Yeah, I get it. David Corn Sweat has not been in many projects as Nicholas Hoult. Like, I get that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I totally understand that. And Nicholas Hoult is a better actor and stuff. But David Corn Sweat is your freaking lead of all people. You know what I'm saying? And also, people, they somewhat know who the actress who plays Lois, because she was in that Amazon Maisel something show, whatever it's called, that I've never watched. And so it's kind of like she was paid the same as Corn Sweat, but Nicholas Hoult was paid more than both of them. And it's kind of like that was so low down and everything. Like, your lead star should always be paid more and everything. Like, no matter what, I don't care who you are and everything. Like, that was just ridiculous and everything. Like, I would literally ask for more money in the second movie. Especially how everybody is praising, David Corn Sweat and stuff. So maybe Lex really was the main character of this movie. I mean, heck, he got paid more. As for the suit and the flying, I'm still not a fan of the suit, but I'm okay with it on screen. It looks a bit better on screen, especially in far away distances. The flying, I'm mixed on. Some flying scenes were cool. Other ones were kind of weird with the fish islands and everything. But it's like, hey, whatever. When it comes to James Gunn and making this movie, and all his movies, to tell you the truth, especially this movie. Like when I say you're supposed to show, don't tell. Like he doesn't want to show too much and everything. And I feel like that's something that he should have done. And I'm still so shocked and surprised why everybody's giving him a pass on that. James Gunn is kind of like this. He's kind of like a kid in a candy store with his parents. The parents buy him like tons of candy. And by the time they get out to the parking lot and about to load up in the car, they look at him and all the candy is gone because he gobbled it up. But you don't see him eating the candy because that's like off screen and everything. And that's how I feel like he made this movie and stuff. It's just like, it's almost like he has like, I don't know, it's weird because I've never seen this in other movies where he doesn't really explain things. Even if he doesn't explain something, he will at least explain it in like a next movie or something like that. You know, his typical rock and roll music is all throughout this movie, and it does not fit with this movie, in my opinion. It works for Guardians of the Galaxy because people aren't used to Guardians of the Galaxy, but throwing this rock and roll music in a Superman movie just feels odd. It's kind of like back in Static Shock, the cartoon, when you have Batman or Batman Beyond guest appear, and all of a sudden there's rap music playing with Batman, and it does not fit in everything. I was worried, like I said before, when James Gunn said he was going to write and direct this. I am worried about like the DCU going forward because I don't understand a lot of this like projects that he's coming up with, like The Authority and like Creature Commandos and whatever somebody wants to make, he just green lights, like that Clayface movie or that like puppet dynamic duo movie. And this whole Green Lantern television series apparently is not part of the DCU. And it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of like he seems like just a giant kid whose attention span, like, you know, goes everywhere, you know what I'm saying? And it's just like, I need him to really focus and tell like a story that's pretty linear and makes a heck of a lot more sense. Even in Black Adam, like I said before, I'm not a fan of that movie. I like the action. I hate The Rock's acting, but at least you can understand the movie from start to sorry about that, camera died. But at least you can understand that movie from start to finish and everything. With this movie, it's just, I don't know where point A starts, where B is supposed to be, and how the heck do you even get to point C? You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't like get all that. And it is kind of weird if Lois has been dating Superman this entire time, but this is now the first time she's met his foster parents. And not only that, but it's weird how Superman just tells other superheroes his secret identity. It's like, when the heck did this happen? And that's because you don't get all the pieces that are like, you know, missing in this movie. And I don't get it. How the heck are people praising this movie as like, you know, Superman saves DC and like this is the best Superman movie we've ever had and this and that, when there are so many flaws in this movie that people do not give a pass for in other movie projects and stuff. It's kind of like Quentin Tarantino. I said this before. If any other director were to make a Quentin Tarantino movie, it would bomb at the box office and everything. But because it's Quentin Tarantino, people give it a pass for some reason. And that is what they're doing with this movie. I feel like because of the dark, gritty take that Zack Snyder took with the DCEU, and everything that imploded with all the other directors and like, you know, the creative people, I feel like they're at a point that where just because they see a Superman who smiles, just because they have red trunks on like, you know, his pants and everything, and because it's more of a brighter tomorrow, they're willing to give like all these flaws like a pass. I just don't get how this movie feels so incomplete, and a lot of people just don't seem to care. I don't understand how people who can complain about all the humor and like the MCU, like Thor, Love and Thunder, But all the humor that's in this movie, like with Crypto and the way like Hot Girl is screeching, they say, yeah, it was a bit too much, but they're still praising it and or giving it a pass and everything. I don't get that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't get that. Because in all honesty, it doesn't feel like a movie that centers around Superman. It feels like more it centers around Lex and everything. It's Lex doing all this stuff and then Superman reacting to all this stuff. Like how cartoony that one foreign leader was. Like the dude feel like he came out of like a 1940s cartoon and everything. Like he was so gooberish and everything. For me, this movie just isn't for me. I don't understand the hype. I just don't. And it's not just because I find James Gunn to be a very weird and strange man and everything. It's just I don't get it. I seriously don't. I don't get how like you can make other movies that are either pretty good or just okay. You know what I'm saying? But then when it comes to this movie that he was so passionate about that he sat down for years, wrote and directed and everything, I don't understand how he gave this half-ass of a movie. I just don't. It's like there's so much missing from this movie. And the moment somebody just says that, the moment somebody says this movie feels incomplete, they get completely attacked online. I am baffled. Like I'm baffled in everything. Is this really how people are now? You know what I'm saying? That where when you really despise the thing that came before, and now something comes around where you like one thing in the movie, you think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I have read through comment sections on other people's like posts where they are just like defending this movie left and right, and nobody is allowed to say anything negative about this movie. It's kind of the way New Trek is in Star Trek. Star Trek went down this dark and gritty path, and a lot of people did not like it. The toxic people on YouTube really attacked it and went overboard with their attacks, where they're attacking people of race, gender, and like sexuality and everything, to where you have the opposition coming in talking about, okay, we gotta defend this no matter what. You know, it's kind of like a She-Hulk thing as well. It's just kind of like, I just feel like some of these people who are giving this movie a pass are not being genuine and are only giving it a pass because you didn't like what came before. And I feel like the other people who are giving it a pass just happen to be James Gunn fans, and the other people giving it a pass are just DC fans who want a brighter tomorrow and everything. Superman being depowered to where he's not as strong as other versions and always having to like, you know, go to his like fortress and get rejuvenated and stuff like that. It was nice seeing him getting hurt and getting his bones reset and everything, and him feeling that pain, making him humanistic and everything. But him to constantly do that is kind of weird. I don't really like a depowered Superman. Like in the animated series, he was depowered. Like whatever, that's animation. You know what I'm saying? But even Bruce Timm realized in Justice League, after Superman kept getting his butt kicked in season 1, he needed to make him stronger. And I don't understand how like Superman is so depowered in this, but then all of a sudden he's able to beat like, you know, all those clone versions and super powered like people and stuff like that. In the climax of like the movie, that was very, very like rushed and stuff. But then once again, when she put those nanobites all over his face and he couldn't breathe, he was able to think of a situation to get out of that and stuff. That was nice how he was able to think his way out of that. But I want to see a strong Superman, like, you know, like I really, really do. And I don't like the idea of this, like, you know, depowered one. This is why I said, like, he should have been Superboy in this movie, because him and Lex seem so much younger, and Superman constantly saying the word dude. he should have been Superboy in this movie. Like, he really should have instead of Superman. But I think there should have been a bigger talking point about this whole, how people turned on Superman so quickly without seeing the footage of him like busting through Lex's office and him like, threatening this and that. Because it's kind of like, okay, he threatened a world leader. He busted through Lex's office. He's pissed over a dog and everything. That he keeps accusing Lex of kidnapping and stuff. And it's just kind of like, when you start to see these type of like, his attitude and everything, is because you're a Superman fan and Lex is getting on his nerves, but this new audience of this new version of Superman does not know that, you know what I'm saying? And it should have been one thing where you saw people around town being all like, I don't know if I trust Superman anymore, I mean, you do get that a little bit, like just a tiny bit, but it should have been a bigger talking point, especially with the video footage of him supposed to taking over like, the world. They could have been all like, see, like this is what like aliens are about. They're all evil and blah, 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 and stuff like that. And it's there, but it feels like it's being glossed over because of every other thing that happens. But of course, Superman tries to justify himself by constantly saving people and stuff. And it's kind of like, I don't know, this movie is just so everywhere and disjointed. It should have had one main focus point and built on that. I mean, it's kind of what happened in the second season of My Adventures in Superman. Kara believes she's here to conquer Earth and everything. Superman is trying to persuade her not to and trying to show her that, hey, humanity is worth like not conquering and this and that. And then she finds out she was lied to and this and that. And even though I don't like the adventures of My Adventures with Superman, even though I did not like the second season, at least they did a better job of handling that than this movie attempted to, with the whole, oh, you're here to conquer and everything. And it's just kind of like, I don't know, it's just like James Gunn has like a short attention span and stuff, and he just kept going from one narrative talking point to a completely different one to a completely different one. And this could have been something Lois grapples with as well all throughout the movie, where she's all like, I'm dating him, I know he's a good guy, I know he's not as bad as Lex says, but there is this dark side to him. And what if, he does exactly what his parents want him to do? What if he starts thinking that way? I mean, he already threatened that one world leader and stuff, Plus, if you're gonna get mad at Henry Cavill's like moody Superman, then you gotta get mad at this one too, because the dude literally bust through an office and just started like shouting and all this other crap, and and how he turned really fast to the camera and pointed at it, and it's just kind of like, I don't understand how people can be a hypocrite. They get mad at one thing, but then they don't get mad about this. Like I said before, I really think a lot of people are giving this movie a pass because of what Zack Snyder did in his version, and because of like Snyder Bros and everything. It's like, it's their way of sticking it to them by saying, we don't care, we'll give this movie a pass and this and that. Because I don't get it. How can you be mad at one for doing something similar that the other one did? You know what I'm saying? But then not get mad at the other one. Like, I don't get it. Is it because of a dog and his little loppy-sided ear and everything? Is that why people are giving it a pass? Now, one main issue I have is just how scattered this movie feels. It feels very choppy. It literally feels like a comic book came to life, where, you turn one page, this is happening. You go to the next panel, this is happening. You turn the page again, and this is happening. That's all good and well when you're reading a comic, but this is live action and stuff. Even Bruce Timm knows that when he adapts a comic, he has to fill in the blanks and everything. He's literally said that before, But James Gunn is just kind of like whatever. It just feels like James Gunn took all these elements that he wanted to tell in his story, chopped it up with like, you know, a kitchen knife, then took those pieces and chopped it up even more, then chopped it up to where it was really fine and like really minced and everything, put it in a blender, and then like put a little bit of like glue on it or water or whatever, and then take it out, throw it on the wall, and whatever's stuck in whatever order it went in, that's what you get. This movie feels very disjointed and everything. It's just like, you know, you're watching the scene and you're getting captivated and you're trying to figure out, you know, what this scene is about. Then it switches to like a completely different other thing where Superman is trying to rescue this and save that. And that's what I don't like about All-Star Superman. All-Star Superman is one of those comics and animated movies that a lot of people just don't like. It took me years after watching like All-Star Superman to buy it on DVD, and I only bought it because I was bored and wanted to add something to my collection. Like, that's how boring that movie is and how disjointed that movie is. But at least that movie had a central plot of, okay, Superman is dying, so he only has a certain amount of time before, you know, his clock stops ticking. So he's trying to do all these things before that happening. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's trying to save this and cure that and you know, all this other stuff, because he knows he ain't gonna be here for too much longer and stuff. And they took that out, this live action movie, and just have Superman constantly randomly saving this person and saving that, this and that. And it's just kind of like, we get it. He did not do that in Man of Steel. He only did it in the Joss Whedon's version of Justice League. Like, we get it. You're trying to show what people have been complaining about for like, feels like a decade now, you know what I'm saying? And so like, I get it, but you need to have a better structure of like, you know, a linear story and everything. But man, do I owe the Black Adam movie a huge apology. I don't know. I think once the dust has settled and like people probably rewatch the movie, at some point they're gonna start overthinking certain things in this movie that does not make sense, you know, because it's kind of like I said before, I don't understand how people can give this movie like a pass and everything, and because there's a lot of stuff in this movie that just doesn't make any kind of sense. And I don't want to hear the crap of, well, it's a comic book movie, it's not supposed to make sense. How many comic book movies have we had that made total sense? This is what people want in live action adaptations. This is why they get adapted from their silly comic book nature and everything. And, you know, I really do think as time passes, people are going to start overthinking the movie and being all like, you know what? Maybe this movie's not as great as we thought it was. There's just a lot of stuff in this movie that doesn't make any kind of sense. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.